Watch Changemakers on DD India.
You're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next hour. Israel's Prime Minister holds series of conversations with Western leaders, briefs on Hamas offensive. Benjamin Netanyahu holds security assessment with war cabinet members and security officials in Tel Aviv. Sixth flight under Operation Ajay lands in New Delhi with 143 passengers, including 2 Nepalese. Philippines summons Chinese envoy over Sunday's boat collisions in the disputed South China Sea. In Cricket World Cup, India continues its unbeaten run, defeats New Zealand in ICC tournament after 20 years, registers 4-wicket victory to earn their 5th consecutive win. In 4th Asian Para Games in Hangzhou, India opens medal tally with silver in canoeing, sweeps podium for men's high jump. And on to details now. Amid the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a series of conversations with Western leaders on Sunday, asserting that the country's victory over Hamas would be a victory for the entire world. Netanyahu briefed the leaders of France, Spain and the Netherlands on the ongoing Hamas offensive and underscored the determination of the people to eliminate Hamas's military and governing capabilities. He also thanked the leaders for their support for Israel and its right to defend itself. Netanyahu also convened a meeting with security officials and his war cabinet in Tel Aviv to assess the escalating conflict with Hamas. This comes as the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict entered the 17th day on Monday. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden has spoken to world leaders, including Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as the conflict with Hamas continues. It comes as the Biden administration seeks to slow a possible Israeli ground invasion to allow for the release of more Hamas-held hostages. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
President Joe Biden was busy on Sunday. He hit the phones to speak to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but he also spoke to Pope Francis, the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and 4 European leaders. The Israel-Hamas conflict was very much the main topic of conversation. Washington is trying to rally allies to give more support to Israel, but also more humanitarian aid to those Palestinians who've been caught up in the conflict. But behind the scenes, Washington is reportedly also trying to stall that potential ground invasion by Israel into the Gaza Strip. It's all to do with fears over hostage safety. On Friday, we saw the release of 2 American hostages by Hamas, but there's still around 200 other hostages still being held of various nationalities. And the fear is, if there is that ground incursion, it'll make it much harder to get those hostages out safely and to get humanitarian aid in to the Palestinians. Also, on Sunday, we saw warnings from the US Secretaries of State and Defense speaking about the possibility of escalation and the conflict spreading throughout the region. There seems to be a real fear from Washington that Iran or some of Iran's allies, like the Iran-backed group Hezbollah in Lebanon or allies in Syria, may look at this as an opportunity to try and increase and spread the conflict. We've seen an increase in activity at Israel's northern border, skirmishes there with Hezbollah firing rockets into the north of Israel. On top of all of this, Washington has put additional US troops stationed here in the US on preparedness for potential deployment, getting them ready in case they need to move to the region in a non-combat role. And on top of that, more defense systems being sent to the region. The US says it's all about protecting US troops and assets in the region. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
And Prime Minister Netanyahu said that French President Emmanuel Macron and Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte will visit Israel on the coming days. In a post on X, the Israel office said that Macron is arriving on Monday, while Dutch Prime Minister Rutte will come on Tuesday, and both will meet with Prime Minister Netanyahu. The LIC has not yet confirmed the visit. And amid the Hamas offensive, Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said the military's campaign in Gaza may take a month or more, but at the end there will be no more Hamas. Gallant was speaking after operational briefing at the Israeli Air Force Operations Command and Control Center. The minister expressed his appreciation to the Air Force and said the next stage, a widely anticipated ground operation, will come soon. And the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Sunday said that the United States expects the Israel-Hamas war to escalate through involvement by proxies of Iran. The leaders asserted that the Biden administration is prepared to respond if American personnel or armed forces become the target of any such hostilities. The warning from the high-ranking U.S. officials came as Israel's military response to a deadly October 7th attack by Hamas on civilians and communities in southern Israel entered its third week. Also, as Israel faces terrorist group Hezbollah from Lebanon front amidst the ongoing Israel-Hamas war, Israeli aircraft struck 2 Hezbollah cells in Lebanon early on Monday. As per the military, the attack on Hezbollah was in retaliation as they were planning to launch anti-tank missiles and rockets towards Israel. DD India correspondent Amritpal Singh reports for more.
Israel intensified its military campaign, continued to hit targets inside the Gaza Strip, even as humanitarian aid was going into Gaza. They kept pounding Gaza, especially North Gaza. And, airstrikes were intensified by Israel. On the same hand, the Hamas kept firing rockets into Israeli territory. And throughout the night, we could hear rockets being fired into different Israeli cities. You asked about the Lebanon, the front with the border with Lebanon and the Hezbollah front. Well, there is a serious threat of that. In fact, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, visited the border with Lebanon and met his troops and said, we don't know if Hezbollah would join right now, but if they join, you will strike back hard and finish them. He said it's a do or die for us. And what they've done is they've started evacuating people from the northern border with Lebanon, fearing that if the Hezbollah opens the second front, the second war front, then they would retaliate, and they are taking a precautionary measure. 5 kilometers inside Israeli territory from the Lebanon border has been declared a military zone, and evacuations from villages, towns, cities is happening. A lot of people are moving. Where I am in Jerusalem, I have a lot of people in my hotel who are from these northern cities staying. People are moving to Haifa, near the Dead Sea. They're basically moving them away from the border to the bigger cities. So there is a serious threat of Hezbollah attacking, and if that does, it will be a very damaging consequences and very devastating consequences on the war, because then the threat of a regional escalation looms large.
Well, earlier, an Israeli soldier was killed by an anti-tank missile on Sunday during a raid into the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip.
Israeli forces carried out a raid today in Gaza territory near the border as part of efforts to prepare the space ahead of an attack and as a continuation of gathering intelligence regarding missing persons and captives, a national mission of top priority. During one of the raids, an Israeli Defense Forces soldier was killed and 3 soldiers were wounded. Their families have been notified.
And amid the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict, more humanitarian aid flowed into the Gaza Strip on Sunday, humanitarian organization Palestine Red Crescent said on social media. The information posted on platform X said that a further of 15 aid trucks carrying food, water and medicine arrived in Gaza via Rafah crossing on Gaza's border with Egypt. While a first convoy of 20 trucks of badly needed supplies had entered Gaza on Saturday through Rafah, which had previously been out of operation after bombardments hit on the Gaza side of the border. Distribution of those supplies began on Sunday, but aid officials are still warning of a humanitarian disaster as supplies of food, water and fuel run low. And RDD India's Amritpal Singh gets us a special report on the Arabs and Jews living in the holy city of Old Jerusalem.
As the war between Israel and Hamas intensifies and Israel is preparing for ground attacks or going into the Gaza Strip, tensions are there all over Gaza and Israel. Right now, I'm in the old city of Jerusalem, one of the world's oldest cities, and also something which is fiercely debated amongst the Christians, the Muslims, and the Jews, because it is the holiest city for all three. What you see behind me is the Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is from where Prophet Muhammad is said to have gone into heaven to meet God. And right next, just right next to it, is the Dome of the Rock, or the Temple Dome, Temple Mount. What you see there is the Wailing Wall, which is one of the holiest places for Jews from all around the world come here and pray. In fact, this old city is divided into different quarters: the Muslim quarter, the Jewish quarter, the Armenian quarter. And when situations like this happen, the tensions here go up.
I live in Jerusalem already for 50 years. I used to be neighbors of Arabs. We got together very much together. But when they started talking on peace, and they did peace, that killed the whole situation. Let us be, we could work together, we could do everything together. Don't interrupt us.
We need to get Hamas out of there so we don't have more stuff, and we can't really do much.
Okay.
It's going to cost them a lot of soldiers if they go in and walking in with like tanks, and that's what they have to do.
There is a big problem now, you know, for both sides, the Palestinian and the Israeli too, you know, and we don't know when it will be going to stop. East Jerusalem, we have here what they call it, Israel, you know, ID. And we're suffering from both sides, you know.
Hamas, you know, they're doing this for their land. They need to take their land back to them. Yes, it's belongs to him. And Israel, you know, every 3, 4 years, they have war here. This is not the same times. Every 2, 3 years, we have the same problem. War, Hamas, Israel. Israel, Hamas. That's what happened here.
So clearly the opinion is divided. The sentiment on the streets of Israel clearly is that of retribution and reprisal. Here in Old Jerusalem, where both Muslims and Jews live, there are Palestinians who live. The idea, their voices, they accuse each other of having started this. And where I am standing, it is one of the most holiest places in the world for the Abrahamic faiths. And this conflict is not new. It may have just flared up now, but it's really a centuries-old conflict. With cameraman SP Dubey, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in Old Jerusalem.
Well, several thousand people gather in Berlin on Sunday to express their solidarity with Israel and protest against the war in the Middle East. Among the crowd were friends and family of hostages taken by Hamas during its terror attacks. German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier said the country stands with Israel and must do everything to preserve Jewish life.
Mit euch. Und es wird eine Veranstaltung sein.
And now let's take a look at other stories making news with a focus on Israel-Hamas conflict. Family members of hostages currently being held by Hamas met with Israel's President Isaac Herzog, furthering their plea for the Israeli government to facilitate safe and immediate return of their loved ones. Israel has confirmed that 212 people are being held hostage in Gaza. About 20,000 people packed into London's Trafalgar Square to demand the release of more than 200 hostages taken by Hamas during their incursion from Gaza into Israel. Many demonstrators wept as the names of hostages were read out to the crowd. Pope Francis has called for an end to the conflict in Israel and Gaza, praying for hostages to be freed and for humanitarian aid to continue to arrive in Gaza. Calling to stop the war both in Gaza and Ukraine, the Pope said war is always a defeat. It is the destruction of human fraternity. Renowned French climber Alain Robert on Sunday ascended a tower in Paris business district to call for peace amid the intensifying conflict between Israel and Hamas. Robert, known as the French Spider-Man, scaled the 220-meter-high Hekla Tower in the French capital. Robert called on political leaders to sit around the table and strive for peace agreements. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Maritime confrontations continue in South China Sea as China urges Philippines to stop making provocations. Argentina closes its first round of elections. We'll tell you the details ahead. And flocks of sheep replaced beeping cars in Spain. How? We tell you ahead.
Welcome to Lakshadweep, the land of 100,000 islands, the aquatic wonderland of India, an archipelago of spectacular marine gems, colorful coral and crystal clear lagoons, a kaleidoscope of turquoise blue. Each island of Lakshadweep draws in explorers with its unique beauty. Witness idyllic sunsets and pristine beaches of Kavarati, the majestic lighthouse and colorful boat races at Minikoi. Experience water sports in the shallow lagoons of Kadmat. Unwind in the serene setting of Bangaram. Lakshadweep offers a precious heritage of ecology and culture, with rhythmic beats of folk dances echoing through these islands, delighting visitors in traditional folk dances and local artworks. With abundant marine life and mineral resources, the islands are advancing towards a greener, brighter future. Lakshadweep is set to amaze visitors with its breathtaking wonders and picturesque seascapes, in the enduring spirit of incredible India.
You're watching the India News. I'm Lepakshi Khurana, and moving on. In Argentina, presidential elections, libertarian radical Javier Milei called on voters to bring an end to Peronist rule in Argentina after he secured a spot in the runoff against Economy Minister Sergio Massa. Massa had over 36% of the vote, ahead of Milei on just over 30%, while conservative Patricia Bullrich was behind on 23.8%, with near 90% of the vote counted. A result result that defied pre-election polls that had predicted a libertarian win. Argentina's economy minister, Sergio Massa, and anti-establishment outsider Javier Milei will face off in a runoff presidential election on November 19th. The winner will take office on December 10th.
We had the most important election in the last 100 years, an election that posed if we continue with the Kirchnerism model or if we want to return to embrace the ideas of liberalism that made Argentina great in the 19th century. All countries that embrace the ideas of liberalism progress.
Well, also Switzerland's national elections saw the right-wing party gain an increased share of the vote with concerns about immigration and political correctness. The right-wing Swiss People's Party was on course to increase its share of the vote, according to early projections. Switzerland's biggest political party was on course to increase its share of the vote. The party campaigned on a platform of preventing the country's population. It also picked up votes from people concerned about the slowing economy and the rising cost of living. The result is unlikely to change the makeup of Switzerland's government, the Federal Council, where 7 cabinet positions are divided among the top 4 parties, according to their share of the vote. And South Korea, together with Japan and the United States, held a joint aerial exercise near the Korean peninsula on Sunday. As per South Korean military, this drill is first such collaboration between the 3 countries. South Korea's Air Force further said in a statement that the drill is aimed to expand the country's response capabilities against North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. An update now on the Russia-Ukraine war. Russian forces aiming to contain a 4-month-old Ukrainian counter-offensive maintained unrelenting pressure on Sunday on the shattered town of Avdiivka in the east and intensified shelling in the southern area of Kherson. Russia has focused on the industrial east since pulling back from a failed advance on Kyiv at the start of the February 2022 invasion, and its forces have tried to maintain positions in Kherson since abandoning the region's main town late last year. The General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces' latest report says Ukrainian forces repelled nearly 20 Russian attacks around Avdiivka, its buildings now largely reduced to shells. And Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida pledged on Monday that his government will work towards pulling the economy permanently out of stagnation. He said that he will compensate households for the rising cost of living with subsidies and payouts. Inflation, fueled by rising cost of raw materials, has kept above the central bank's target of 2% for more than a year, weighing on consumption and clouding the outlook for an economy making a delayed recovery from the scars left by COVID-19. Well, Sri Lankan Navy has taken into its custody a multi-day fishing craft with a stock of more than 212 kilograms of narcotics. The value of the drug haul is reported to be more than 4 billion Sri Lankan rupees. In a joint inspection carried out by the Sri Lanka Coast Guard Department and the security forces, the stock of more than 212 kilograms of narcotics hidden in a sophisticated manner in a boat was detected. The contraband was found in 188 parcels. The Navy says the stock of narcotics was found in the multi-day fishing craft which left the shores last month for fishing. 5 people found with the narcotics in the boat have also been arrested. And Hurricane Norma, brewing over the Atlantic Ocean, made landfall at the southern tip of Mexico's Baja California peninsula. Later, the hurricane was weakened into a tropical storm with wind speed hitting of up to 110 kilometers per hour as it crossed the Baja California peninsula towards Sea of California. Norma was expected to dump 6 to 12 inches of rain with a maximum of 18 inches of flood water. Although the tropical storm did cause some minor damage to the region and languid pace of the storm raised the possibility of severe flooding, but there has no casualties reported. And the second red danger of life weather alert in the week has expired in eastern parts of Scotland amid torrential rain and high winds across the UK. 3 people have died since Thursday when Storm Babbitt first took the hold. Forecasters had said another heavy rain could fall over the regions of UK that are already been hit by severe flooding. So far, these severe flood warnings have also been issued in Derbyshire, which means that there is a significant risk to life. Meanwhile, helicopters have been sent to assist the North Sea drilling platform, which lost 4 of its 8 anchors during the extreme weather. And Cyclone Tej, originating over the Arabian Sea, has intensified into an extremely severe cyclonic storm. The storm is currently moving north-westwards and is expected to cross 2 countries in the southern Arabian Peninsula, Yemen, Oman, by this week as a severe cyclonic storm with wind speeds gusting up to 115 to 125 kilometers per hour. The authorities urged everyone to take the needful precautions. And South Korea's national oil company inked an oil storage agreement with Saudi Arabia's oil giant Aramco to reserve 5.3 million barrels for 5 years. The agreement was made during South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol's state visit to the Arab country. South Korea's national oil company also said that Aramco's oil in its reserves will help in enhancing energy security. South Korea and Saudi Arabia are planned to ink 51 deals and MOUs worth $15.6 billion, marking 50 years of construction cooperation between the 2 countries. And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Indian-born novelist Salman Rushdie received the prestigious Frankfurt Book Fair Peace Prize for continuing to write despite enduring decades of threats and violence. The author spent years in hiding after Iran urged Muslims to kill him because of his writing. Earlier, Rushdie was stabbed during a lecture in New York State, which left him blind in one eye and affected the use of one of his hands. Mexico City's streets came alive as hundreds of skeletons paraded on the capital's main boulevard as part of Day of the Dead festivities. Mexicans painted and got dressed up as the iconic Mexican skeleton for one of the city's main events for Day of the Dead, a pre-Hispanic tradition in which families remember their dead and celebrate the continuity of life. 2 wild giant pandas were captured by camera in a tranquil state enjoying sunbath at a natural reserve in Hangzhou city of China's Shaanxi province. The rare footage was shot by staff members of the Shaanxi Natural Reserve during patrolling. It reveals a giant panda cub comfortably lounging on a tree, basking in the warm sunlight. Flocks of sheep replaced beeping cars in central Madrid for a ritual that follows ancient herding routes. The annual event, recognized by the Spanish Parliament in 1994, allows shepherds to use the traditional routes to herd their livestock. Excited bystanders watched as shepherds, decked out in traditional clothes and wooden clogs, guided their livestock calmly, passing landmarks and crowds. And still to come on DD India News Hour. India's External Affairs Minister attends D20 tree plantation drive here in New Delhi. Celebrations galore as Durga Puja enters its 9th day, glimpses of which we show you ahead.
Always welcoming. The vibe of Punjab is larger than life. Warm up to grandeur that's beyond compare. And history that's dotted with tales of bravery. Smiling soul of India, where music, art, cuisine and culture comes together to create an unforgettable impression. Punjab is all set to win your hearts with its unique and colorful extravaganza.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lepakshi Khurana, and time now for a short recap of the headlines. Israel's Prime Minister holds series of conversations with Western leaders, briefs on Hamas offensive. Sixth flight under Operation Ajay lands in New Delhi with 143 passengers, including 2 Nepalese. Philippines summons Chinese envoy over Sunday's boat collisions in the disputed South China Sea. In Cricket World Cup, 5th placed Pakistan faced spirited Afghanistan in men's ICC World Cup today in Chennai. In 4th Asian Para Games in Hangzhou, India opens medal tally with silver in canoeing, sweeps podium for men's high jump. Moving on, China has urged the Philippines to stop stirring up trouble and making provocations at sea and stop making dangerous moves. A Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson made the remarks when asked to comment on the latest incident in the South China Sea. China and the Philippines accused each other of causing collisions in a disputed area of the South China Sea. Meanwhile, China's embassy in Manila said on Monday it had lodged stern representations to the Philippines over the trespassing of Philippines vessels at the disputed Second Thomas Shoal in the South China Sea. The embassy repeated China's call for the Philippines to stop causing trouble and provocation at sea and to end groundless attacks and smearing against China. Meanwhile, Manila has summoned Beijing's ambassador on Monday over 2 collisions between Philippine and Chinese vessels in the disputed South China Sea. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Teresa Daza told reporters that Philippines is making full use of all available diplomatic processes, including summoning the Chinese ambassador. So we know that the Philippines has summoned Chinese envoy over the boat collisions. Manila has summoned Beijing's ambassador on Monday over 2 collisions between Philippine and Chinese vessels in the disputed South China Sea. Foreign Ministry spokesperson also told reporters that Philippines is making full use of all available diplomatic processes, including summoning the Chinese ambassador. And Andrew Wood joins us with more from Hong Kong on this. Andrew, Philippines and China trade blame over South China Sea collision. Statement from the National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea says dangerous blocking maneuvers by the Chinese Coastal Guard caused the collision. What more information you can give us on this?
Well, I think you've actually given a lot of the most information that's come out in the past hour or so. Certainly the Philippines seem to be taking this seriously, with the president ordering an investigation. It's perhaps the worst thing, or the most the most escalation we've seen over the past few months. You may remember a year or two ago, the Philippines complained because the Chinese Coast Guard pointed, it said, a military-grade, very powerful laser at some Philippine Coast Guard vessels. There have been confrontations, more and more confrontations, over the past few months. And this seems to be the worst. At the moment, I think one worry is that that China might be distracted with what's going on in the Middle East, and might America, which is for the Philippines' ally, might be distracted also as well. So, with a bit of luck, perhaps this will de-escalate. But as I say, we've seen this trend of more and more frequent confrontations, interactions, and so on, that do seem to threaten the security or threaten the peace of the South China Sea.
Well, Andrew, the South China Sea is highly important, as we all know, for the Philippines and so for the U.S., as it is the world's busiest shipping routes, and so for China's defense. So how do you see this triangle?
Well, China, of course, has built illegal bases in the middle of the South China Sea. It's claimed to about 95% of the South China Sea as its own territory, its own territorial waters, stretching right the way from the South China coast itself down to the island of Borneo, which is shared between the Philippines, shared between Indonesia and Malaysia. International courts have not supported that. So China seems to want to control this area because so many trillions of dollars of trade passes through this area, and it treats it as its own domestic seas, although the countries around it, the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia and Vietnam, are rather worried about the way that China has unilaterally declared parts of their own territorial waters as being parts of China's territorial waters. The worry, I think, will come when, if there are more confrontations between the Philippines and the Chinese Coast Guard, is at what point will the Philippines call for support from its main ally, which is the United States?
Yes, I was about to ask you that, Andrew. This episode was the latest in an intensifying dispute over the South China Sea, a row that, if escalates, could bring the U.S., a Philippine ally, into confrontation with its rival China also. What do you have to say on this?
Well, I think that the United States needs to tread very carefully here, because this will then look like it's a direct confrontation between the United States and China. The United States has worked with its allies in NATO and Australia and so on to send warships through the South China Sea to prove, or rather to say, this is international waters and we're allowed to travel through it. If there's a touch point at the moment, I think people are worried that China might invade Taiwan to forcibly unify Taiwan with the mainland of China at some point in the next 7 or 8 years. I think there's more chance of actually a flashpoint being in the South China Seas, with one of these confrontations turning a bit nastier. Remember, the Chinese Coast Guard is authorized to use deadly force if necessary by Beijing to protect what China sees as its own domestic waters.
Right, Andrew. Thank you so much for that update from Hong Kong itself. And moving on, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, India's G20 Sherps Amitabh Kant, Delhi's Lieutenant Governor and Indian Minister Hardeep Singh Puri, along with the G20 delegates, took part in a plantation drive held in India's capital, Delhi. The drive aims to promote India's agenda of lifestyle for environment and combating climate change. Indian External Affairs Minister emphasized India's stand on climate change on the occasion.
Impact. The message of women-led development, the support for digital public infrastructure, the life mission, the sustainable lifestyle for environment. At the end of it all, there was a very strong sustainability, green, global south image that came out of the G20. This G20, we would like it certainly to be remembered as a green G20, as a sustainable G20, in many ways as a G20 of the future.
And as India continues to evacuate its stranded nationals from the Israel-Hamas war zone, sixth flight under Operation Ajay with 143 passengers, including 2 Nepalese citizens on board, lands in the national capital, New Delhi, on Sunday. The passengers were received by Union Minister Fagan Singh Kulsaste at the Delhi airport. And sixth flight carrying 143 evacuees from Israel lands in Delhi under Operation Ajay. DD India correspondent Akshay Dongre caught up with the evacuees regarding the situation in Israel. Let's listen in.
The sixth flight under Operation Ajay has finally reached back home. It has landed at the Indira Gandhi International Airport in New Delhi, and all of these people who are now here behind me are the evacuees who have been evacuated under the Operation Ajay from Israel. Israel, where a war is going on, and all of these people have been evacuated as they wanted to come back home. And finally, as they are home, we'll try and get in a word from these people and try to understand that what exactly they had to go through. What is the situation like there?
It's too much square for no going work. So many days no work, only staying the room. Cannot, everything is...
You can't go to work?
No go work, only stay the room, nothing to eat. Is that so I will come back?
The Israelites are quite brave. They are just bracing all the difficulties. But whereas the other country people, definitely they are scared. A lot of bombardment is taking place, particularly during nights, even during daytime also. You never know when the bomb comes and make a burst.
People have to rush to the bomb shelter.
Bomb shelters we have to go. Otherwise, there is a difficult times there. But otherwise, whatever the what we call it, protection, so that is protecting so much.
This is what the people have to say as far as their experience is concerned. They have been scared as far as the war-like situation is concerned. They have been trying to survive all of the bombardments, all of the strikes that are going on continuously, but still they managed to come back home. And under Operation Ajay, a lot of people, hundreds of people have come back to India, and a lot more will be coming as far as the requirements are concerned. The flights will continue till the time the last Indian who wants to come back home comes back home. With camera person Naveen, I'm Akshay Dongre for DD India.
And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. Director General of Nuclear Watchdog Agency IAEA Rafael Grossi has arrived in India. This is IAEA chief's first visit to India. India's Ministry of External Affairs in a social media post said Grossi's visit will further strengthen India-IAEA ties across diverse sectors. The overall air quality in the national capital of India remains under very poor category. Amid the increase in pollution levels, the air quality of Delhi has drastically worsened over the time. The government's pollution control plan, known as the Graded Response Action Plan, has been implemented in Delhi NCR as an initiative to combat air pollution amid winters. Today is the 9th and the final day of 9-day-long Durga Puja festival Navratri. The 9th day is dedicated to the worship of goddess Siddhidatri, also known as Mahanavami. Devotees offer prayers seeking her blessings on this auspicious day. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Amidst Middle East conflict, Asian shares show downward trend. And Verstappen claims 50th Formula One career win with US Grand Prix victory.
The most appealing lake of Sikkim is the Geopolitical Lake, located at a height of 38,710 feet, which makes it the highest lake in Sikkim. It is considered as one of the holiest lakes in the state.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and on to business updates now. Asian shares are lower on Monday as the risk of a wider conflict in the Middle East clouds sentiment. Washington has warned over the weekend of a significant risk to U.S. interest in the region as ally Israel pounded Gaza and clashes on its border with Lebanon intensified. The European Central Bank and Bank of Canada also hold policy meetings, and while no hikes are expected, investors will be sensitive to guidance on future moves. A recent surge in bond yields has tightened monetary conditions, allowing the Federal Reserve to signaling to stay on hold at its policy meeting next week. And while Japan's yen has taken the spotlight in Asia on Monday, circling the 150 per dollar level in a tug-of-war between investors betting on a further rise in dollar yields and those expecting Japanese authorities will intervene in markets. Also, oil prices slid more than $1 on Monday as diplomatic efforts grew over the weekend to contain the conflict between Israel and Hamas. Brent crude futures fell 79 cents to $91.37 a barrel, having lost $1.02 to $91.1 a barrel against the session. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures were down 91 cents at $87.17 a barrel after sliding $1.72 to $87.03 a barrel earlier on Monday. And you're watching DD India News. Time now for some sports news. In sports, India continued the supreme run in the ongoing Cricket World Cup. The men in blue defeated New Zealand by 4 wickets in Dharamshala on Sunday. This was India's 5th win from the same number of matches, an outcome which helped the host climb to the pole position in the 10-team points table. India, who were asked to chase a stiff target of 274, wrapped the proceedings with 2 overs to spare. Virat Kohli was the leading figure in India's run chase, scoring 95 runs. Jadeja, too, played a good hand with the bat and returned unbeaten on 39 of 44 balls. Earlier, Mohammad Shami's 5-wicket haul restricted New Zealand to below par scale of 273. Daryl Mitchell scored 130, while Rachin Ravindra scored 75. Indian batter Shubman Gill made history at the ICC Cricket World Cup 2023 by becoming the fastest to reach 2,000 ODI runs in just 38 innings. More in the reports.
Shubman Gill etched his name in the books of cricket history. He blazed the trail by becoming the quickest player to amass 2,000 ODI runs, achieving this feat in a mere 38 innings, eclipsing the previous record set by Hashim Amla. Gill crossed the milestone with a glorious boundary over star Kiwi pacer Trent Boult. The promising batter scored 26 runs and lost his wicket to Lockie Ferguson, as the home side continued their chase of 274 runs to win. Inking this milestone, Gill overtakes the legendary South African batter Hashim Amla, who scored 2,000 runs in ODI cricket in 40 innings. Moreover, Gill stands as the 5th youngest Indian cricketer to reach this milestone, with Sachin Tendulkar holding the distinction of being the youngest Indian to achieve the 2,000-run mark in the ODI format. This accomplishment not only served as a testament to India's batting power, but also provide a strong foundation for Gill's journey to a remarkable achievement, solidifying his status as the fastest in the business. Varsha Kotwal, DD India.
Meanwhile, Pakistan and Afghanistan renewed their rivalry today at the M.A. Chidambaram Stadium in Chennai. Pakistan started the World Cup with wins over the Netherlands and Sri Lanka, but the 1992 champions then suffered back-to-back losses to India and Australia. They have slipped to 5th in the 10-nation table, with the top 4 going through to the semi-finals. While Afghanistan pulled off a shock victory over defending champions England, but have also slumped to 3 defeats. The Afghans have come close on numerous occasions to beat Pakistan, but failed to cross the line. The match is slated to start at 1400 IST or 8:30 a.m. GMT. And on to 4th Asian Para Games in Hangzhou, China. India's Prachi Yadav opened India's medal tally at the 4th Asian Para Games, winning the silver medal in canoeing in the women's VL2 category. In men's high jump T63 category, India sweeps the podium. Shailesh Kumar won the gold medal with a game's record of 1.83-meter jump, bagging India's first gold in the 4th Asian Para Games. Paralympics gold medalist Mariyappan Thangavelu with a jump of 1.80 meters gets silver, and Ram Singh Padiyar 1.78 meter gets bronze in 3-way contest. And Sir Bobby Charlton and those affected by the Israel-Hamas conflict were honoured with a moment's applause ahead of the Premier League match between Aston Villa and West Ham United on Sunday. Charlton, an England World Cup winner and one of Manchester United's greatest players, died on Saturday at the age of 86. Charlton was a key figure in England's 1966 World Cup winning team, playing alongside his brother Jack, and he made 758 appearances for United, scoring 249 goals. Charlton spent 17 years at Old Trafford, and aged 20, he was part of the Busby Babes team, decimated by the 1958 Munich air crash, in which 23 people died, including 8 United players. And Red Bull's triple world champion Max Verstappen held off with charging Lewis Hamilton to take the 50th win of his Formula One career and record equaling 15th of the season at the United States Grand Prix on Sunday. Mercedes driver Hamilton finished second, a mere 2.225 seconds behind, with McLaren's Lando Norris third at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. The victory was Verstappen's third in a row in Austin and equaled, with 4 races to spare, the record the Dutch 26-year-old set last year for more wins in a single season. And New Zealand and South Africa will lock horns this Saturday in the Rugby World Cup final, while the 2023 Underwater Rugby Open League season has come to an end in Athens in Greece. With 11 teams and around 160 athletes participating across the 2 legs, home team Physalis have been crowned champions ahead of Valtellina and Frogs Bothioks. During a match, 2 teams consisting of 6 in-pool players and 6 replacements play with a negatively buoyant salt-water-filled ball and try to score in the opponent's goal, which is a heavy metal bucket with netting and a diameter of about 40 centimeters. Well, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.